again, everybody. Welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And yeah, we are doing round two. I actually just uploaded my video, and I thought to myself, and I knew it was me because I recognized the voice. I thought to myself, why does the CP always lose? They always lose. And there have been a lot of videos out there saying why the CP tends to lose. And then other people will come back with, hey, the CP always wins in our games. So it's a very interesting discussion to have, but there's a guy I really respect out there who does some really quality videos. His name's Good Captain, and he and I actually had a game of this a couple years ago, and he kicked my butt. He was the CP, if I remember correctly, and I did a couple things he said surprised him, but overall he ended up just thumping me good with the CP. But I learned quite a bit about that, so that was good. It was nice of him to play a game. We played via email on AAA, and that was my first time ever playing that. Very interesting, and you get all your stats and everything. So very interesting way to play. But thanks to the Good Captain there about with that. And now the reason I'm doing this is because I actually went on the Good Captain's channel because he has a video that talks about how to balance out the game a little bit for those of us who find that the CP tends to lose. They just don't have the economy to keep up with things. So he put 5 rules up as suggestions, and using all of them at the same time, because one of them probably wouldn't change things. So I'm going to read them through here. The first one is about United States. Now, the U.S. usually comes in at the start of turn 4 if they haven't been attacked already. They come in at the start of turn 4. And so with him, he says, have them come in at the start of turn 5, but also start with no money. So they'll still get their 60-point build, but they won't have it moving until turn 5. So they're going to be a turn later. All right, so a turn later for the United States, and we'll see if that has a grand effect, and I think it might, because we saw what they did last time, real hefty distraction. The second thing is that the neutrals cannot be invaded, and the only save on that is, of course, Persia can be. But no longer can you do any invasion of strict neutrals. So the Americans come over to Spanish Morocco, they're not making any more money. So the only way America can boost her income is by coming over and taking some of these territories, either from the Ottomans or from the Austro-Hungarians. Not likely the Germans. If they're taken from the Germans, then the game's probably in its death throes, as it were. Number 3, something that doesn't come up a lot in my games, my solo games, is that the Dardanelles is closed. Now, you can still go into C-Zone 20, but you cannot go through. And I guess what some people do, and I remember doing this years ago, is they'll come through with a stack of transports. You might lose 1 or 2 along the way, but then you land a force right here on the doorstep of Austria-Hungary and some of their big-ticket items. So that is something that gets shut down. By closing the Dardanelles, you cannot go through Constantinople. All right, so there's that for the Entente. Number 4, and this is one you may have seen already, is you see that there is now a border here. So C-Zone 18 now extends all the way down to the southern end of Albania. Now what this is going to do is going to stop the Italians from getting their 2 freebie dollars. It'll likely guarantee that the Austro-Hungarians will get it, because this rule of extending this in concert with no landing in neutrals means that the only way to get to Austria-Hungary is going to be through Italy or through Germany. It's the only way to get to them from the west. Now, of course, if Russia's having a good game, then that's probably going to be curtains anyway. But I find that to be very, very interesting. Of all the rules that we're talking about here, I think this is the one. I think this is the one right here, that simple line. So we're moving this white line down here and making a black line. That's just a piece of tape I got on there. You can see I'll just pull that off when it's done. So I think that's the key one right there, because now it's basically there's this wall, this impenetrable wall that no one can get through. Yeah, so Austria-Hungary can now kind of breathe easy, take Serbia, take Albania, and then everything else goes to Italy. The other thing, the last rule is that we've removed 3 infantry from Piedmont and 3 infantry from Rome. So we've weakened Italy by 6 units. And I'm not playing my house rule in this one. I'm going to do out-of-box rules with this one. He didn't on the video talk about the Russian Revolution that I remember. So we will play without the Russian Revolution this time. Because he didn't bring it up, so I'm going to assume not a lot of people play with it. So that's what we're going to do. So you can see already that Rome and Piedmont are lowered down. They have fewer troops ready to go. I honestly think this is going to look a lot more balanced. I don't know if it's going to tilt it all the way for the CP, but again, this one line and the fact that all 16 of these Austro-Hungarian units can hit Venice on round 1. That's a big difference because there's nothing really to worry about down here, and Budapest can take Serbia and Romania likely on the turn. So, of course, time will tell. Still got a lot of dice to roll. And the last thing he mentioned isn't really a rule. In the book, you can build as much as you want. In India, there are no limits. You can't build ships, though, because there's no port symbol. But you can build all the ground forces you want. I limit myself to 5 typically, because in the olden days, I would just stack up a whole bunch of stuff, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm in Constantinople, and there's no stopping me. But now, knowing these different rules, perhaps that's going to slow me down a little bit. And also, when Germany isn't having to rush any help down to Austria-Hungary, they might be more of a force to be reckoned with as they head west towards Paris. So I'm really excited to see what happens here. So no Americans until turn 5 is when they can get moving, and they can't even come get extra money. So it's $20 around for the US of A. One thing, too, is you have that unrestricted sub-warfare. I've never used that. I think he even mentioned in his games he's never used it. Just one time he used it, and when he did, he got sunk. It's a pretty weak rule. There are some people who have put different ideas out. Jonathan Meyer, I know, put out an idea that you can roll a 1, 2, or a 3 instead of just a 1 or a 2, and then for each hit you take $2 off the loser. So instead of just 1 for every 1 and 2. So, but again, if Germany's pouring money into subs, that means they're really holding their own on land. So we'll see what goes on here. But round 1 coming up, and again with these rule changes, let's see. Maybe the CP will have a better shot at forcing the issue here. I don't think it's a done deal, of course, but I do think there'll be a bit more pressure, especially on Italy. I think Italy's not long for this world in any great sense, because they're not going to be getting this. They'll definitely be losing this in the first turn, so they're already down to $12 around, and that's if they can hold everything else. They could also do a landing in Tuscany. In fact, I can grab 2 guys and just land in Tuscany and force them to do something about that. But hey, we'll see what we come up with. Round 1 coming up. It's going to be fun. Thanks a lot to the good captain. These are good ideas. All right, here we go. Round 1 is over, and definitely a very different feel to this opening. The Russians have gone on defense like they normally do, but with much more vigor, we'll say. They've headed on to defense. So they have retreated everybody back to Ukraine, and they're hoping to withstand. They do have a lot more than what the Austro-Hungarians can bring, but Austro-Hungary and Germany together might really put the hurt on this group right here. But we shall see, because of course we have a small counterattack and a fighter, and the Austro-Hungarians did not build a fighter this turn. I'm kind of ruining that decision at this point. I know it's a couple extra infantry, but having a fighter and your artillery all shooting at 4s is pretty cool. Down here, I went with a full build in India. I built nothing up in England because I'm going to test this out and see if this balances. Because again, if this is a restricted build, then the Ottoman really have no natural enemies with this C-zone being cut off here. It's very difficult to get in and cause any kind of grief to them. The Brits, of course, took Persia, lost a couple guys doing it, but got their 4 hits. That's really key in my mind, is being able to break through that, because now you're threatening Mesopotamia. And the Ottoman just left a single guy behind, might get a lucky hit, but have loaded up in Ankara and definitely outnumber the British. It's not even close. So the British might not even take a poke at Mesopotamia right now. They did come and grab Arabia, thanks to the transport from 19, came down, grabbed Anglo-Egyptian Sudan guy, and brought it over. Over here, the Germans are doing what the Germans do and are sniping what they can. But the British were able to attack here. Didn't get any losses. Only got 1 hit, though, with these 3 guys. And took out the artillery, which is kind of key, because that's the only real threat that the Germans have. And they will likely... I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I probably won't attack. I'll probably take that and take that with Germany just to snipe a couple of bucks and make the British come get me. Yeah, that's where we're at right now. The French are doing what they do down in Africa. Got to come lend a hand to the Brits. And, of course, we took Portugal. But you're all wondering what's going on here with Italy. Well, they have really had to back up. 1 guy survived the attack in Venice. 1 guy, and which is a good thing, because had he not, then, yeah, that'd be really, really bad. But 1 more turn. Venice obviously will be lost. But there is no secondary punch right now from Austria-Hungary, because everybody from Tyrolia and Trieste went in there, and the guys from Vienna didn't follow up. They went this way. Because of all the experiences I've had with the Russians, and I figured we're going to add more pep to the Central Powers attack. And I don't think we'll need all those bodies. Even if we don't win this versus Italy, they're already down to 12 bucks. And that will likely do nothing but fall for the remainder of the game. If Italy is resurgent, then that could be a problem, but I don't think pouring money against Italy in the early stages is wise when Russia is really the beast from the east. Over here, the Germans built a lot of artillery and a fighter, and as you can see, are moving things with great vigor and vim this way, trying to do what they can to put pressure on Paris very, very quickly. So they will likely be putting everybody into Lorraine this next turn, inviting a French attack, and hopefully be able to wipe out a lot of French troops in the process. The German Navy just lost a cruiser to the mines, and then and 1 sub to the mines, and then the other 2 subs were sunk during the battle. But the British home fleet was disintegrated. And so they brought the Canadians over, of course, and landed up here in Picardy. And then the French are coming to the rescue and will try to create a bit of a shuck system. I don't even know if we're going to bother attacking the Germans. I think we'll make them come to us, and then we will just be building up here British transports and get guys across. And the Americans, well, they're still not worrying about the war at all at this point, being very isolationist. Okay, so round 2 coming up. This really is a game changer. I know I keep saying that, but I can't get over it. Because with no problems coming from the south, Austria-Hungary is a lot more emboldened to go after Russia, because there's really no fear from this sort of an attack. But time will tell if that's foolhardy or not. Round 2 coming up. Round 3. is about to begin, and round two had some interesting things go on. So the Russians came out and were able to crush the Austro-Hungarian forces and had quite a bit left, but then the Germans came in and got 14 hits on the Russians, but they also lost 10 divisions at the same time. So the Germans are pretty toothless right now. The Russians do have a few units down here they can call on. Pardon me. And they just built 9 guys in Moscow. They had $27 because they saved a little bit. So they're, looking a little healthier here, but I didn't think the Russians would get all those hits, but they just did. Down here, the Ottoman are consolidating before they move out because they don't want to move out and then all of a sudden you're getting crushed by some big British force. Now, having said that, the British are also taking their time and building up, but they're still very outnumbered. The Turks here have, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 20. Yeah, they got over 40 units at home here, all totaled. So they got about 35 units in this area. And the British are lucky if they've got like 18, 20. Now, I have brought some guys over here, and I've still got guys in Egypt. So it's kind of an even fight. But again, the British built everything here in India this turn. So I'm thinking I can't do that forever. I think I might have to build another boat up in England, but we'll show you that in a moment. Down here, Germany got kicked out of Angola, but we're able to snipe South Africa and Rhodesia. So the French came by, jumped into vacant Southwest Africa and vacant Nigeria to free that up for the British. And the Germans are hanging in there. They still got 3 of their guys out of the 4 that they have to start with. And they're just making a royal nuisance of themselves. Over here in Italy, I gotta say, I was a little skeptical about taking away 6 infantry from Italy. I really was. But had I not, so they would have taken Venice back and there'd be nothing stopping them. And that would all of a sudden, the Austro-Hungarians would be fighting for their lives. So a nod to the good captain. I think that's actually a pretty smart idea because they got them down to 2 units. And with those extra 6 infantry, then they could have gotten a few more hits. Not much to say there. Here we got the French and the Germans. And this is what the Germans have in their army. They got 7 guys and 9 artillery. And the French only have 4 guys and 8 artillery and a fighter. Also, who can come along? Well, all these Germans right beside can make it. So they can definitely kick the French out of Lorraine. Or they can go beat up the British. But I think it's probably smarter to go consolidate, beat up the French, possibly kick them out of there. Possibly. And there's a lot of infantry with the Germans here, so losing some to their French, their higher-powered artillery here, a bunch of French 75s, they can absorb with men and not be losing any artillery. So that's about where we are right now. The French brought by the guy from Portugal with an artillery up into Brest, and they've consolidated their fleet up here in the Channel. I didn't think I really wanted to do anything with the German fleet this turn. Not really much to be done, but time will tell. Time will tell if maybe you should push the issue with the German fleet or just keep the Brits from landing behind your lines, because that's normally what I look for. I look for that opportunity to sneak behind the lines. So I'll probably retreat the German fleet this turn, so at least I've got the coverage of the minefields. And, try to keep the French honest. So that's where we are right now. The Germans took last turn's build and sent it towards Russia after losing 10 infantry divisions here. They're going to be needed to go after the Tsar and his troops. Round 3, we can build tanks now, so there will be some of those. Stay tuned. All right, 3 turns in, and some interesting things are afoot. Here, I'll start in Russia, where the Germans have a small force, but not terribly bad in Poland. The Russians had some good victories in Ukraine, but also lost a lot of stuff. They are down, but still outnumber the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians here in Ukraine. They were able to get some really good hits last time. They did have to take some guys out of Sevastopol, so there's only 3 guys there, but one guy ran over to Romania and grabbed that because Austria-Hungary threw the kitchen sink into the battle in Ukraine, and it didn't quite go the way they wanted it to. Down here, I have decided to get the Ottomans and take them off the leash, as it were, and let them go, let them run, and see what happens. They definitely outnumber the British in Persia, but there are some concerns over here in the south, as the British have been building up and took Transjordan with their Egyptian forces and a little bit of help from their Arabian cousins. So the Turks had to bring some guys into Smyrna. That's their build from last turn, and from Constantinople, and just trying to hold down the fort. We'll see what Britain does this turn. Built 3 tanks. I think that might have been a mistake. Probably should have been like 1 tank and then a couple more bodies, because I think the Ottoman may actually attack. So I might have to retreat to India, put on a big build, and then start marching again. Down in Africa here, we got the Germans are in French Equatorial Africa and Portuguese East Africa, but that is it. They have been pushed out of everywhere else. Even Togoland they've lost, Cameroon got beat up in South Africa, and the Belgian Congo, so not long for that dark continent. Up here, Austro-Hungarians finally beat Albania. We're able to take out the last guy and without loss. Loaded up here in Trieste, but Venice is now fully Italian. We retreated everybody but 1 guy out of there into Trieste, hoping to just keep our forces together. And it's really surprising, because Austria-Hungary looks quite powerful, but even taking out Little Italy is not easy to do. The Germans are pushing more stuff towards Russia. Again, is it a mistake to spend this kind of time, money, and energy? But the Russians are down. The Russians are down. They got about 18 things on the board right now. 19 maybe, and that's it. So if the Germans can force the issue here, they might be able to capture Moscow in about 3 rounds. But they do have to keep the French at bay, which they have been able to do. The French actually had to retreat out of Lorraine, went into Burgundy. British landed 4 or more units here, but they're just not able to push them out of Belgium yet. There's still an awful lot of Germans in Belgium. 13, about 16 units there, mostly infantry though. But not any follow-up. Not any follow-up. So I think these tanks are going to start heading westwards on this turn. And here we are, we're starting turn 4. Usually then the Americans could get into it, but they are not. They're a turn behind. And the Canadians are still waiting for the British to send over more ships. And the Portuguese will be joining shortly. So this is where we're at. We are just about done with Germany in Africa. And the Ottoman Empire is looking quite a bit healthier than normal, but they do have to be wary. If all these British forces consolidate in the Syrian desert, there could be a little bit of an Ottoman sandwich going on there. All right, on to round 4. Might have to be a little bit of give and take here by some of the main players. We'll let you know. All right, beginning of round 5, which means that the United States of America is now in the war, and they had to build, but we'll talk about what went on in Russia first. Yeah, the Russians were able to clear out the remaining Austro-Hungarian and German forces in Ukraine, but they took some losses doing it. So they are right now, they are down to 14, 15 units in Ukraine. That's it. And they just got the build. I built a plane. I'm not sure if I'm going to regret that, but we'll probably retreat the artillery to Moscow so that they can actually use the bonus from the fighter. Now, the Germans, though, have a couple of fighters here and have some tanks coming, and I am committed to destroying Russia. That means I'm likely going to lose some German territory in the process, but if we can silence Russia in maybe 3 turns, I think we can hold the fort against the French and the English. Over here, the Russians briefly had Bulgaria, but it was just taken back by the Ottomans. And so the Russians had a decent payday. I think they're sitting at about 28 or so they're going to have a bit of money. And, well, here we got what's going on. You can see the Ottoman have captured Persia and Arabia. Basically, that's because the British decided to back up. We had to back up. We were totally outclassed by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Really overpowered us there, so we had to back up. But now that we've got what we've got, we are now going to be moving forward. So I figure 1, 2, 3, in 4 turns, maybe 5, we should be knocking at the gate of Constantinople. But I think we may be losing our detachment here, so we are going to probably send them back to Egypt. We may snipe Arabia just to draw some more of the meager Ottoman forces out of the picture. Speaking of meager forces, this is all that's left in Africa. We do have a French transport, which is nice. And the Italian guy was supposed to move. He forgot to move back. He was protecting this from the Germans, but as you can see, there are no Germans. They are gone. Jerry has been sent packing. Up here, we've got some interesting stuff going on with the Russians moving into Romania. I had to send some guys down into Budapest to hold on to that. And the Italians had taken Venice, but then they retreated because, of course, there's a lot of stuff here for the Austro-Hungarians with more on the way, and they knew they were not a match. The French dropped off a couple guys from Portugal, and likely a couple more are going to follow suit. Now, this looks pretty thin up here, but there's, decent armies going on, but the Germans have no follow-up right now because I have been focusing on Russia. So they will likely have to back up, probably kill the British and Belgium on the way out, and then just kind of retreat backwards. And maybe in a couple of turns I'll have stuff headed this way again. But we've beaten up the French pretty well. This is what the Germans have sitting there. So not too shabby. They got 16 cannons and I believe 19 infantry. So 16 artillery, 19 infantry for 35 units. And the French have about 29 units, if I did the math correctly. But they do have a fighter, so likely not a battle the Germans want to have. Excuse me. So they will take their last $2 out of Lorraine. Then they'll move to Belgium. And the next couple builds are... the next build is probably headed east. We'll see about the one after that. So we talked about the Italians. So the Americans are ready to go. We've got our 6 men, 6 artillery ready to head out into the Atlantic, land in Morocco, because we can't take Spanish Morocco. And then from there, not exactly sure where to go. Probably going to end up in Italy, providing some much needed help to the Italians, as the Austro-Hungarians will likely be in fine fettle, sitting in Venice, enjoying the gondola rides. The British took Belgium, as you can see. Picardy's wide open, so the Germans might send a guy in there. I don't know if it's really worth it, but they might send a guy in there, but then go beat up the British Expeditionary Force here in Belgium. So that's where we are right now. Still the two fleets looking at each other here. Really not worth it to build any German boats right now. I need boots on the ground, not boats in the water. All right, round 5 coming up. Let's get those Americans involved. They love a good war. All right, here we are, round 6. And at this moment, I'd just like to pause and say that I think the good captain is onto something, because this game is far more interesting and entertaining than most of the ones I've played. So, good stuff. Having said that, Moscow is under a little bit of pressure here. They're not dire, right? Like, it's not the end of the world stuff, but you can see it from there, right? So lots of tanks coming their way. But if you can attack the tanks, that's always handy. But here we got Austria-Hungary and the Ottomans working together in Romania. So somebody's going to take Sevastopol. Somebody's going to come up here and bulk up Ukraine. The guys from Galicia are going to come bulk up Ukraine. Over here, Venice is likely going to fall. The French came in and did an attack. It didn't hit anything and didn't get hit. So they just basically wanted the Austro-Hungarians to fight for it, which they now shall. They've got a couple tanks there that are adjacent, so even if the French get hits, nothing will happen. The response from Italy is not bad, a little meager, but they don't have the horses to totally dispatch them. But they do have 12 and 20, about 20 units in Tuscany. And yeah, Austro-Hungarians have about that many coming, but obviously a healthier economy. Up here, the Germans continue to build their tanks. I'm kind of going in for the end of the game push, and if I can protect my tanks, they could have like 20, 25 tanks and just kind of push everything out of the way. They're terrible on defense, of course, so you do need a lot of infantry to protect them, which I don't really have right now. So hopefully, well, we don't have huge stacks over here either, so I don't think that'll probably weigh into it. Down here with what's going on, I really did a lot of, oops, I forgot to switch this out. I think I might owe $1 to the Ottomans. I'll have to check that out. I really did a lot of soul searching here as to what to do with these guys. I was going to put them all into Mesopotamia, but I just couldn't quite match what the Brits had, especially with those tanks sitting there. So I took Mesopotamia. The Brits had a single guy in there. I took that, took Transjordan with force. But the Brits actually do have more stuff in Egypt. So if this goes poorly for the Ottomans, they may have to just back up, which that's usually what happens. And I don't really want that to happen too quickly, but we are on turn 6 and they still own all of their territory, plus Arabia and plus Bulgaria. So I guess I don't really need that there. So I'll take that off of there. All right. I think I've already talked about this area here. The Western Front, yes, the Germans went backwards and wiped out the British force there. It was bigger than I thought. There were actually 11 units in there, but they were able to smack them pretty good, and they lost 5 doing it, though. So it was not a cheap battle by any means. But this is what the Germans have sitting there right now. And you can see the British, and then the French army is here. So quite sizable, but the Germans do have the advantage of going first. So they will likely back up into the Ruhr and possibly further should it be required. They likely, they don't want to tussle quite yet. We really do have to subdue the Russians and at least knock them down to where they're only making $6 or $10 a turn and they're not putting on 7 or 8 guys. So at least do that, and then we can start turning our attention this way. The Americans have landed in Morocco and are going to be then making a landing elsewhere. I was actually thinking of going north, but the furthest you can get is Sea Zone 7 or way up in 3, and you're no closer to really landing than you would be from here. So you can go all the way to 8 and land in Picardy if you want, or you can come down here and help the Italians out directly. So that's probably a better spot to go, is Sea Zone 14. And there's their backup. And now America is down to making $20 a round. So unless they can somehow snipe some money somehow, somewhere, they're not going to be as big a force as I usually have them as when they start taking things like Spanish Morocco, Spain, Greece, Albania. They usually get some U.S. flags in here, but not this game because we can't get in there. All right. Well, we are going to load up, see what we can do, And we'll see. Germany definitely going to be backing up, but then they're going to meet up with their brethren from Berlin in a couple turns and likely start pushing westwards once again. All right, that is it for round 5 recap. Round 6 coming up. What's it going to look like here in Moscow? Lots of Germans, but not quite enough. All right, so round 6 is over, and the picture is getting a little bleak here for the Russians. Again, not terribly bad because they got numbers at home, as you can see. They are sitting with about 30 some units. There's more than that here, but it's divided amongst the German and Austro-Hungarians. So one at a time. I think Austria-Hungary would lose everything if they attacked. The Germans might fare okay, and they'd probably have Moscow as a contested city. So yeah, but you can see that I have stopped the parade. So if the Russians can hold on past this last gasp by the Germans, they should be able to rise like a phoenix from the ashes or something poetic like that. Time will tell. Speaking of... Nah, I wasn't speaking of this at all. I'm speaking of turtling now. Here comes the turtling Turks. They decided to back up, could not match the firepower that the Brits are bringing, and decided that... run away and fight another day, something. So they took off, and here come the Allies. Now, I was going to put this Italian guy here for $1, but I think I'd actually rather have it go to the British or the French. Now, why do I say that? Well, as fun as this looks, it looks like Italy is, kind of holding their own, but they also just got another 12 units from America, and they got a couple Frenchmen there helping out. And yeah, I think Italy's going to be okay. Knock on wood. That's plastic, but it'll have to do for now. I think Italy should be okay for a few rounds. Anyway, I don't see the Austro-Hungarians just marching through. They didn't use the tanks in this attack. And I ended up losing 1 Austro-Hungarian infantry. I just didn't want to be in a place where you see some tanks sitting there that are only at a 1 and they don't, block shots anymore. So that might have urged the Italians to attack. Whereas now, maybe they'll just hold back a bit. But we'll see. With the Americans landing, the Austro-Hungarians are definitely going to load up in Venice before they try to go anywhere. Up here, the Germans have started their move west, and you can see the French are getting all uppity, taking Alsace. And you can see that Belgium, of course, is now under French control with some English troops thrown in for good measure. And a few others here, and a little bit of a train moving up the coast. The British are heading over to pick up the Canadians, and the Americans have a meager build coming. They do have 4 more units ready to land in Italy. But then that'll be it. Brits are doing pretty well here in Africa, and we'll probably be moving these forces all forward. Not exactly sure if I want to separate them and then draw the Turks out one direction, or if I want to bring these guys into here so they can support each other. But then it's a single focus for the defenders, which makes things easier for them. But we do have to take Sevastopol from them because that's just cheeky. That's cheeky nonsense. Can't let that stand. And the other thing I could do is send this whole mess straight north here and then attack these guys in the flank, which would give them a chance to run amok for a couple rounds. But so many decisions. I really do enjoy this game, though, as there are many decisions to be made. I think it starts out a little scripted. There are certain things that you kind of have to do here in Africa, right, with the stuff you've got. I think there are certain things that must be done by the Central Powers. Chipping away at the Russian economy is of paramount importance. If Russia collected right now they would only collect $12. And I don't know if they're going to get much more than that, because if they push out, they've got to bring at least two or three units out to hope to get these back. These two here. But can they afford that with this monstrosity on the doorstep? Well, we'll see if I lose my senses and my good senses and just go for it. You'll find out in just a moment. Here we go, round 7, and you can see the Germans have scooped up everything. And the Russian Revolution would have happened had we been playing that rule, but I decided not to for this very reason. That would have forced the Russians to come out here and take stuff like this, thereby weakening and all but guaranteeing the overthrow of Mother Russia. So I want them to go down fighting. There is a lot of stuff here. The Austro-Hungarians will probably take a poke this turn just to soften them up. They'll lose everything doing it. We're under no illusions. But hey, if we can shoot down that Russian plane, that'll help the German Air Force out as well. But we've done that before. There's been one Russian plane and two German planes, and the Russians won. So we'll see how that goes. The Turks definitely bottling up now and turtling up, as it were, and only collected $11 this turn. The British are encroaching from all sides. Minor, meager help from the French and the Italians, but this is basically a British show, and they're doing quite well. Likely the last build in India. I built another transport up in the English Channel because the other two are headed off to Canada to try to help that out. Africa's empty. Italy's here. The Americans landed a couple more guys, and Austria-Hungary definitely has to start moving forward at this point. But I really want to wait for the tanks. But I don't think, they're going to have to wait for the tanks, because if not, the tanks don't have enough support to withstand an attack from anybody. So we'll have to wait, and I don't want to divide my forces. We'll bulk up, and Sun Tzu says when you punch with a fist. You don't punch with 5 fingers. So yeah, we're gonna have to get everything together into one spot and hopefully kablamo. The Germans did back up into the Ruhr. They went forward and killed the French guy in Alsace and took that back. And the French followed the Germans up the coast into Belgium. So this is what we've got right now. So this is the German contingent that's here. So a decent size of fellows there and some supporting roles surrounding them. And then this is the French one. And again, very good size. And not sure if it has as much punch as the Germans. Germans have a few more artillery pieces. But depends on whose fighters can survive. And the French have 2, the Germans only have 1. So, got to be a little careful. And the French built another one this last turn. Germans are stocking up on tanks, though. And they'll be headed towards the French. There's already a bunch that are going to be hitting Moscow. We've got 8 tanks hitting Moscow. So the first 8 hit by the Russians means nothing. So I have a feeling if the dice go well, Moscow is going to be in for a world of hurt. The Americans came over here and with their meager donation to the war effort. But I didn't build anything this turn. They had 25, and I just added another 20 to that. And these guys are going to head over, and the build will be waiting for them next turn of $45, which can fill up these 6 transports and bring a world of love and affection over to Europe. So that's about where we stand right now. And there's more Canadians coming over and going to get thrown into the fray. The tip of the spear in Allied advances during World War I. And that sounded like a good idea at the time, but we sure paid a heavy cost for being a nation of only about 8 million people. Had over 650,000 came over, and 10% of them died, and the rest of them had as most other nations' peoples had injuries, either mental or physical. So this is coming across on the boats. I did have a grandfather on one of those boats, and he fought at Ypres in Belgium. It's called Ypres, but the Allies call it Wipers. But he was there in the second battle of Ypres when the Germans used the chlorine gas for the first time. And pretty crazy stuff. I don't know why I just thought of that, but again, very thankful for when I was born and where I was born, folks. No getting around it. We've got it pretty good today. So, all right, on to round 8. We'll see if the Muscovites have it pretty good today as well. They got a lot of guys in there. Round 9 coming up, and whoa, big battle went on here. And the Russians actually did get 20 hits on the Germans, but 8 of them were deflected by the tanks, and only 8 suffered, while the Russians lost 22, I believe, something like that. So really equal hits, but the results are not conducive to that. The Austro-Hungarians got wiped out, of course, but what they did was they went in and destroyed the Russian aircraft. It was mano a mano. They both got killed. So that really helped out the Germans. They came in, did a strafe, didn't hit anything, but then all of their artillery, which is not insignificant in number, I believe they have 14, they were able to shoot out of 4. Hence the 22 hits. They got a good number of hits. Yes, we're just going to be turtling in Constantinople, and the British are even sending some guys around in the north. Not much of a punch, but enough to keep these guys honest, and may actually threaten Austria-Hungary here. So, yeah, now Austria-Hungary finally got their tanks into Venice, and so likely going to do an attack on Tuscany this turn. But I was thinking of maybe trying to take out the Americans here, but I think it's more important to take out the Italians and push on Rome. I outnumber them pretty handily, but it's, the fighters. If the Austro-Hungarian fighter wins, they've got about 15 artillery that'll be shooting at a 4, and that can sure do some damage. And of course, they've got 5 tanks, who will absorb the first 5 hits. So definitely in their favor. Unfortunately, you got the multinational group here. Now, the French can't do much. They're there for a defensive role. But the Americans do have 14, 16, I don't know, they got a lot, 16, 18 units there. So they can do some damage. Nothing backing it up, though. Everything is over here, and there's still 2 turns away. Up here, the Germans backed up into the Ruhr and loaded up. Now, I have organized these things so you can see what's going on here. So we see 25 infantry, there's 4 tanks and a fighter, and 22 artillery. The French, on the other hand, they've got 39, is it 39? Yeah, I think they got 39 infantry and 23 artillery and 3 fighters. So it's actually a stronger force, but they weren't when they were beside the Ruhr. When they were in Belgium, they were missing about 20 of those units that were in Picardy and Paris. But now that they're all together, it's a bit of a larger force. But again, the Germans have more stuff coming that'll even the odds. And if we can keep this stream headed this way, that could be a very interesting finish. And I think the finish is a little ways off. I think Moscow might be in a bit of trouble here. The Russians only collected $8 last turn, so that'll be a couple artillery. And the Ottomans only collected $9, and not likely to collect much more going forward. And they're surrounded as well by some tanks, and more tanks are on the way. Well, such is life, right, when you join the Central Powers. But Berlin is fine. Vienna should be okay. I might have to take a little detour with the units I just built, come down here and take out these Romanian Brits. But yeah, it's kind of a tempest in a teacup compared to what's going on over here. All right, round 9 coming up. The action should be pretty furious. Entering double digits territory here, but I don't think Russia's going to really experience it too much. Yeah, they are down to 7 units here, and they only got $1 last round, so they're not buying anything else, and I'm pretty sure what the Germans have here can dispatch the Russians' meager force pretty easily. Now, the Brits activated a bunch of stuff here. Look at that. Look at all that stuff they were able to take. They did save $3 for the Russians, but if the Russians, and the Russians should collect this $3 this turn, so that'll give them 4 because they still have Kazakhstan, and they will have $4, but not enough. Yeah, not fast enough to add another unit. Likely dead. Now, this is turning into quite the standoff here. If you just take a look at it, it kind of looks like the Turks might have an advantage, but they don't, actually. The Brits have the advantage, especially on attack, because they do have the tanks. They have 8 of them, and they also have 2 fighters to the Turks' 1. They also outnumber them by about 4 or 5 units on attack, and by even 3 more on defense. So I was actually really looking at a Turk attack, but if they had come out in full force, then the Brits that are on the wings could have gone in, because they only had $10 to spend, and they could have taken the capital, which obviously is not what you want to have happen to your capital. So yeah, that's what they did here. The Brits took a little bit of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, so they're going to want to take that back. Obviously, these are just annoying attacks. They're not really meant to stick around for a long time, but anything that slows them up. And right now, the Austro-Hungarians are a bit on their heels. Yes, they got punched in the face really hard by the Italians. They punched back hard, though. They took out about 12 or 15 Italian infantry. They're down to 1. But they still have a lot of artillery, and the Americans came to town and helped out, and their tank actually stopped one of the hits for the Americans, so they only ended up losing 1 infantry. There wasn't much left by the time the Americans came in. So the Austro-Hungarians are probably going to regroup in Tyrolia, and they'll have quite a force there, and then they can start moving towards Rome again. And again, Italy is only collecting $12 a turn, so it's not like they're putting out an awful lot of stuff on the board here. So we know that Moscow is likely going to fall. Constantinople will likely be contested. So the Turks will be out of the game. Russia will be out of the game. So this is where the main event is going to take place, as it usually does in these games. And now the Germans, having sent everything this way, are going to have to really figure out what's the best way to skin the French cat, as it were. The British are now tooling up everything in England. They are no longer building anything in India, and they haven't for a couple of rounds. So I keep forgetting to move this fleet, though. I got to move this fleet. But the British now have, once they get all their transports back, they're going to have 6 transports, so they can bring 12 units a turnover, which is typically more or about what the Germans build on their own, and then you'll also have the French. Plus now we have these Americans coming in and causing 6 kinds of grief. So we are certainly, it's not a done deal. Germany has its work cut out for it. And this again is their army. And this is the French army over here. And yeah, I think there's still an advantage right now to the Triple Entente, especially if Constantinople falls. I don't see it falling for quite some time. But really, once the Brits get in there, it's pretty much over, and they can start sending some of their stuff elsewhere, because the Ottoman will not be collecting any money whatsoever. All right, so that's where we are here on turn 10. It's been a very interesting game. It's kind of funny how the end can come so suddenly. The Turks, 3 turns ago were looking actually quite good, and Russia was looking like it could hold on for quite a while. But a couple of rounds of bad dice, or concerted effort, or a 1-2 punch, whatever it is, can really change the fortunes here in 1914. All right, on to round 10. Here we go. Turn 10 is over, and so is the Russian Empire. It is gone. And kind of went with a whimper. There were only 7 units, 8 units, 7 I think in the capital at the end, and there were 8 tanks attacking. So regardless, if Germany got enough hits, that was it for Russia. So they are gone, and there was actually $7 on the table for the Russians at the end of their turn that they collected. So the Germans sniped 7. And down here, a massive conflagration took place. The British came out on top. All this stuff is actually in Constantinople, of course. These guys will be joining next battle. Did not go well for the Turks at all. Again, 8 British tanks. Turks got about 21 hits, I think, or 23 hits or something, so not bad. But a third of them get taken by the tanks. And meanwhile, the British on 58 dice, 59 dice, got 42 hits. And it's hard to win war, 42, sorry, 32. Anyway, they killed a lot. There's not much left here for the Turks. They put on 2 guys and didn't collect any money at all. So that's all there is to that. They're probably out this next turn. So 2 capitals are going to fall on turns 10 and 11. The Brits are being really annoying here, and even taking some of Austria-Hungary's home territory. They'll get dispatched shortly, I am sure. But that's got to be a pain, especially when this is going on your western front. So Italy has regained its territory. We kind of hightailed it out of there for the Austro-Hungarians. But they got a decent stack there. Not bad, a little in the 20s of units. So it's more than any of these nations have. But attacking them is not really on the table right now. So we got to get some more guys up there. But we got to take care of this first, and got to take care of this, and got to take care of that. And then we know that this is coming north, right? So this is coming north, which means that all these Germans are probably headed for Vienna. I don't see any other choices they really have. Fortunately, they can get there before these guys can, and possibly have a nice attack ready for the Brits. So if the Ottomans can take out enough British material here, it might actually save Vienna down the road. But Italy is really thin. Not much stuff. They've only got 9 guys on the board and maybe like 12 or 13 artillery. That's it. And a fighter. But, again, they're only making $14 and they've been only making 12. So up here, the Germans moved up into Alsace-Lorraine and picked up a few units along the way. So they are ready to rock and roll. The French, as well, have been bulking up and also got a little bit of help from their British comrades over here. The British actually have 7 transports in the channel now, so I built 7 men and 7 artillery because the British are making over $50 a turn in the last couple rounds. Not in small part thanks to these nice territories, right? So right there is $13 that they've collected this last round. And to say nothing of all the other stuff that they own, right? So, yeah, they're doing all right for themselves. They're collecting in the 50s, probably in the 40s this next turn, but still, lots and lots and lots of cash for them. The French, they're just bulking up every turn. They're doing 6 guys and 4 artillery, sometimes 6 guys and 3 artillery, depending on how the dollar lands for them, and if they're able to maybe snipe something here and there. But I think the Germans, it's hard to tell. Might be one more turn away from doing something here to that big French stack. They do outnumber the French at this point in artillery and tanks, but the French have a few more infantry. They have about 8 or 9 more infantry. Plus the French have 3 fighters and the Germans only have the single fighter. But they do have 2 over here that aren't doing anything, and they've got 1 here, so could even the odds. All right, this is very interesting, folks. So Russia's been put to bed, and Constantinople is not far off. So these are going to be the big battles here and here, and we'll decide the fate of Europe, and if not the entire world, in the next few rounds. Stay tuned. All right, so here we are at turn dozen, and despite the CP's best efforts, I think they are a sinking ship. We'll do another round or two, see what really happens here. But Constantinople got wiped off the earth, and it wasn't even close. Kind of similar to the Moscow battle. So I look at what the Germans have here, and they have about 25 units or so, including 2 planes. The Ottoman did shoot down a plane, which was nice, but they lost their own at the same time. But the British here, so we said they have about 25 or so. The British have they actually have that much in artillery, plus another 11 men, plus a few tanks. They got 8 tanks. And up here, things are not looking any better. I had to actually bring Germans down to save Austria-Hungary to provide a little bit of a backstop for them. I knew the Americans were going to come in, and they smashed the Austria-Hungarian force. The Italians sure got beat up, though. There's not much left. But, yeah, it's not looking good there. But with Austria-Hungary now having to worry about their southern border, which they haven't had to worry about at all, and they still haven't been able to punch through, not really sure if they have much of a chance. Again, you got to roll a lot of dice, but with only 1 battle round per battle, it's tough slug. The Germans have a lot of stuff here and a decent-sized army, as we know. But the French actually have now surpassed them by a fair margin. And then there's also the British who are here, and they're landing 14 units a turn now. They've landed 28 units in the last 2 rounds. So for my part, I think it's over. It was very entertaining, but I think it's over. I was talking about doing another round, but I really don't see the point. I think it's just going to just bog down here. The French are putting on 10 units per turn. The British are sending over at least, the last 2 turns they've sent over 14. That's going to slow down to probably 10 or 12. But that's still over 20 units a turn getting put on there. And the Germans, if they have a really good build, will put on, 6 or 7 infantry and 4 or 5 artillery and a couple of tanks. Now, they could break that down a little bit, but they're already outnumbered. And the Americans here is nothing to sneeze at. There are these Germans, but again, they are outnumbered about 2 to 1 by the Brits here. So, not really feeling like anything's really going to change here. Austria-Hungary goes next. They're not going to be able to attack Italy. Hopefully they'll take Albania, but they failed last turn. Hopefully they'll take Romania, but they failed last turn. They can send one guy into Bulgaria as a blocker, but he'll just get run over, of course, by the British, who are definitely headed right for Vienna, as are the Americans and as are the Italians. So everybody's going to be focused on going to Vienna. Yes, the Germans can provide some support, but it's not much for defense because these tanks are lousy in defense. Meanwhile, we have the Germans giving ground on the Western Front, trying to build up their army to get to the size of the French one, but even the French army outnumbers them, plus the British. So I think it's just going to be another Entente victory. I think the dice would have to go really, really hot for the Central Powers and ice cold for the Entente, and that's in repeated turns. That would have to go on again, time and time and time and time again. And I just don't see that, well, mathematically happening, but just even probability. So I think we're going to call it here at turn 12. And it could go on again. It could probably go for another 10 rounds. But I just don't see how any difference could be made at this point. The Germans have to spend all their time now looking after Austria-Hungary, while the British and French are sending their main armies straight into Germany proper. So thanks for watching, folks. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a little anticlimactic, but I think you'll agree with me. If you don't, leave a comment in the leave a note in the comments. I'll leave this set up for a little while, but I'm going on a trip in about 36 hours, so don't have a lot of time to do much with it. But it is here. And let me know if you think, oh, no, this is what Germany can do. Because personally, I just don't see it. Again, decent army. It's not bad. It's not bad. But I think the French have them beat in a number of areas. Plus the French have stuff and the British have all their stuff. British have about 40 units on the continent right now. And another 16 coming over next turn. Looking pretty bleak for the Germans. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Thanks again to the good captain for all these ideas. I think I implemented them properly, and it was a lot more touch and go. I really like this. I think I'm going to keep that because it keeps Italy pretty broke. And it also helps Austria-Hungary. Obviously, I must do something wrong. Maybe I send too much stuff towards Russia. Maybe I should just husband my resources a bit and just go after Italy. Just go 100% at Italy, because I have double or more the economy and more units to start. Plus, we're peeling 6 units off here. So maybe I should do that. The closest we got was right here in Tuscany. But that was a brief stopover, and we just got pushed straight back. All right. That's it, folks. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, hug your loved ones, thank your friends for playing, and hey, may those dice be with you like they were with the Entente today.